Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of this video on sheer heaven. It's using shears to recreate a look of a sunrise that I saw one morning and misty looking trees. I have decided I'm going to extend it, so I may as well put it in this video so you can see what I'm going to do, because sometimes maybe you want to do it as well. So what I have is I have a larger surround. I've used something very, very, very fine, and I've put a very, very fine iron-on stiffener to it just to hold its shape. Put this down, and I marked the edges. You know, if I decide the bottom's out and I want more sky, I can bring it down that way, you see. Whatever, but to mark that line in, well, not that line, but just the other side of it. So what I think I'll do is I'll use a disappearing pen to start with, because it'll just disappear, and then on the outside of that I'll just use a pencil, because you're not going to see that bit, but it's more permanent. So I'll do that now. Right, so you can see what I've done. What we've got is this blue line, which will disappear. I did change my mind and bring it down there. So that's where it's going to be. And I will make it disappear vaguely into that background, so that this is the interesting bit. But, you know, it's lovely the way things can flow out from the edges. So I'm hoping to show you that. And then I've drawn about an inch outside of that. I've drawn a line, and I've just done that in pen, so it's permanent. So I'm just going to get rid of some of this excess now, because I really don't need it at all. Now, I was just thinking to do it as I had planned and just finish this little one and then maybe do this in a third part, and I thought, no, I'll put it all together at once, because I'll save myself some stitching for a start. But sometimes, you know, you do a little work and you know, what do I do with it? You want to go and frame it or something, and it really doesn't have, it's not big enough. So this is a great idea. You can extend beyond the edges. Now, if you were going to extend, and yeah, then you wouldn't do knots like I had, but that's okay, we'll just go over that. That's not a worry. You do your knots on the back, but I thought that was going to be under a surround. Now that it's not, we're just going to look. We've got this bit here that extends. We've got that bit there that extends. So I'm just going to keep those, and I will use it. I chose something pretty neutral for the background, so that if bits of it show, it doesn't matter. And I didn't want it to be white, so because I wanted the white to be showing up as the border. So I figure this neutral colour is fine for what I need. And now I would be inclined to just look at some of my bits and pieces that I've got left over, and I would think, you know, I could extend that out a little bit. And we'll be doing that, and we'll be doing some cutting back and all kinds of fun things. See how that works? That's fine. That's extended that. But I'm not going to extend it all. I'll extend more with stitches and things like that. And that's the plan. So I'll just add some bits and bobs just to get us started. There's a purple underneath, just to colour some sections of this material. Some bits could go completely over the top. Let's do one of these. Let's do this again. I don't know if you saw me in the last one, but I did do some of this where I just use my scissors to cut sideways. And sometimes it creates a nice raggedy edge. It really just depends on the fabric, but it's worth a try. Sometimes I rip, sometimes I purposely cut, and sometimes I try that. And what I'm doing here, if you can see, is I'm putting in some, like we did previously, but I'm just extending it out. So I've got some lovely silvery stuff that I've just put in there, and some nice silk on top, and those subtle colors and shiny bits are, you know, are going to be layered up. So I am adding a little touch of glue here and just mucking around with popping some bits in, you know, that I'd like the sky to be richer at the top. And so that's what I'm playing with, but you'll see. Alright, let's try it with the, hang on. But I'm not going to go the whole hog. Some of it will be stitching, some of it won't. I'll put a tiny bit of, will that help that blend in? No, I was planning on doing this anyway here. Should get my little snips, but I quite like the idea of cutting out some little tiny snippets of that. That'll do. I think I can build from something like that. So I'll do the same thing I did in the last one. Glue stick to hold it. We might just tack a couple of little lines whilst we're holding it down, and then do a few, just continue with what we were doing, just the little stitches. So you see, so that was pretty easy to extend. And yeah, like I said, I'm not too worried about these things because I have other things I can do to extend. I didn't want the whole thing to be extended. Right, I've ironed it. Now if you do iron it, remember that you're using a lot of shears, and they could be synthetic. I've got silk and I have synthetic in here. Synthetic ones, you know, they will melt. So make sure that you have a piece of cotton or ironing cloth or something over the top, so that your iron is not in direct contact with any of those shears, and then you'll be fine. Yeah, so I like that. And I have also added some running stitch, sort of tacking down basically through it. See on the edges there, done it in a blue so I'll see it, and they'll come out later. That's fine, that's just to hold it, and that's quite a pretty picture. So now I'm going to grab some threads, and I'm going to go outside the edges and continue it onto that blank space, and I hope that that's going to be quite pretty. Not sure here yet. Can you see that lovely fabric that I used? And it's very crinkly. Going to do something with that. I haven't decided yet, but I am feeling quite confident. So we're going to do pastels and yellows and a bit of lavender sort of thing in the sky, and start there, I think. Just running stitch. Some nice colours to start with for that sky. See how they virtually blend in, and yeah, a nice bluey mauve, and that would be about all I require, but we'll see how it goes. So I start adding some running stitch, straight stitch, slow stitch, just along from side to side in gentle sweeping curves. You know, sometimes I use it because I want to accentuate a color, or you know, just highlight it. Sometimes it's just to hold it down, but you can see how it's working. Now I don't need the tacking stitch all that time, so I'm taking it out. And my next little trick is I'm using my snips, and I'm just cutting little bits out of the top layers. You see the trees, the green sheer layer, let's let some of that pink sort of sunrise sky through and it'll look more natural. Also in the top I'm adding shine by cutting layers back. You can see what I mean. It's very effective. Okay, so I'm just wanting to catch you up a little bit here. Let's have a look. So as you can see, plenty of different coloured stitches, and all I'm doing is going like that, backwards and forwards. I popped a sun in. I think it was a wrong spot. Maybe it should have been here, but you know, let's not get technical. And then I started to snip little bits out. I can't find where I've put my snips, but you can see, you know how we had so many layers, didn't we? Well, you know, I've just here and there started to, you know, just do little tiny bits out. And here, where I've got that beautifully shimmery underneath, I've done that. And here, I've done little snippets out of that green to allow the pink show through, because the green is suggestive of those distant trees. Remember, this originally was a sunrise and it was a misty kind of day, and you couldn't tell, you know, sometimes what things were. So that's what this is. It's a vague suggestion. But we will make it a little bit more noticeable what things are. Let me just grab the... Right, now let's have a look. Now, do you remember I was saying that, you know, it was too small for this? And if I used this, I had to choose which bit do I want. I could have done that, but I decided to make it larger. So what happened, and what I'm trying to do, is I have sometimes put a little bit of sheer or whatever out to the side. Sometimes it's a bit of thread that was there. But I didn't want it to be a, you know, all of the sky, so I've actually cut a few bits out, you know, similar to here. I want that original picture to be there, and I want this to be like flowing outside the lines, if that makes sense, outside the border. So with all of these stitching, that means I can then feel free to cut little bits because it's already held down. You know, sometimes you might need to do something, but I'm still wanting to bring in a little bit of blue. I think I'll just bring in that blue to follow that. And just a few more things. And then I'm probably going to leave this bottom half because we end up with too long a video, and these things grow on me, don't they? So I am going to finish this top half. I'm just going to do a tiny bit more stitching, tiny bit more cutting out, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of stitchery to just suggest trees, and that'll be where I stop. And I'll save this bit for later, and you can tune in then if you want to see it. Alright, let me get some things and get started. So it's not quite the blue, but it's actually in between that lilac and that blue is this lovely mauve colour. So I'm just going to use that. You can see how nicely that sets that off. And then we're going to do some trees. But I also brought this out just to show you. So we had, like I was saying, if you can just snip little bits out. Allow bits of the background to show. You know, if I wanted more of this, for example, I could just lift it up, cut it out. Sometimes I find it hard to remember what colour is underneath. Doesn't hurt to just do a little and see. Pretty much the same colour, so I don't think that does us much good. It's something like that. It would be quite dynamic, wouldn't it? So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Just a little bit to bring some of those layers through. They show up quite well underneath anyway, so that's nice. But as I said, a little bit of lavender in the sky here. We'll follow that line across, a little bit outside that line, but bringing it into the picture. Now you may wonder why I'm doing it. Yeah, sometimes it's an area that I'm wanting to disguise a bit or blend in, or I think this bit here, I think what happened is that one of the interiors underneath melted a little bit, so rather than worry about it too much, I'm just obscuring that by stitching through it, and I don't think anyone would notice. They'd just think it's a darker piece of cloud. So those are some of the reasons why I do what I do. And this time I'll go down that way. And maybe a tiny bit more of this here, just through those clouds, and then I'm gonna, you know, you can play forever, but I don't want to. What I want to do is get on with those trees I was telling you about. Part of me itches to put a different, start with a different stitch, you know. I quite like things like French knots where there's clouds and things to denote the fluffiness, but I'm trying to do this as simple, well, when I say simple, with as few stitches, a few different kinds of stitches as possible. I think I'll just use a single strand. I'm going to try it in the purple. I was thinking of a nice fly stitch would be good, just to do some distant kind of pine trees, maybe fir trees, whatever you've got where you are, that kind of thing. And I thought I may even, I have to think about it for a little minute. Okay, I may even extend it out, so we'll just see. So I'm just going to do one under the other, going out a little bit. If you can see what I'm doing, a fly stitch is thread up, thread down to the other side, and then in the center where I've got that trunk already, I'm going to pull it out. In the meantime, I've kept this thread out the way, and as I do that, it keeps it in a nice arrow shape. So I'm just going to do that again. So if you start to see some of those, you might start to think, oh look, there's a tree there, but I can't quite see it because it's so misty. But that's what I'm going to try and do, is some of those, and just see it may not be the right colour. It might not show up enough. I might like to do it with 2 strands, but this is all experimentation. I'm sort of doing it in matching colours because I wanted these ones to be sort of in front, I think, of these ones anyway. There might be something else to come, but maybe here I could do another little one. So if you see what I mean, you can't see it that well. You're not meant to, but I shall do that in this little bit above the tree line, and then I'll do some more here in front of that tree line with a different kind of thread, one that'll show up better. Now a tiny bit more here on this side. So I'm doing that. I'm adding in those very light colored trees, and now I'm adding in 2 strands of a browny green kind of color. I know you're not seeing it that well, but yeah, it's just a start, just to get me thinking, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just adding layers of definition because that's the whole idea. It's misty and we don't really see everything that well, but we want to try and make it appear like a painting. So I hope you really have enjoyed watching this and seeing where it's going. It certainly is very experimental. I thank you for watching. My name's Tracy. If you'd like to see part 3, do subscribe so that you'll be notified for when it comes up. And do press like if you have enjoyed this video. Thank you very much.